Welcome, Graham. We're so excited to have you. So, you've been in the industry since 2002, and tell us what propelled you originally into real estate.
Have I never told you that story?
I don't think our viewers have heard of it. I kind of like it.
Sure. Well, it kind of goes back to I had purchased a home. I was actually at the time bartending. I managed a bar in Minneapolis, and even stepping back from that, I had gone to the U and I bartended on campus for my whole time there, pretty much, and thought I was going to own a restaurant bar. So I stayed in that industry after school and managed a couple bars in town. And I had ended up buying a house, which I totally fell backwards into. Right, mm-hmm. I literally would watch the owners of the bar every day talk to their realtor about this property they were trying to sell that they couldn't sell. And the realtor would come in to meet with them prior to us opening while I was prepping the bar and everything. Yeah. And one day I just said, well, maybe I'd buy it. Where's it at? And it was a rental property that they had. So I did everything wrong. I went there with their realtor and she said, what do you think? I was like, yeah, it'll work. Sure, I'd buy it. And she said, what do you want to offer? I was like, I don't know. How much does it cost? Yeah, I had no clue what I was doing. Didn't do an inspection, anything. But I ended up buying that house and started to just dig in. I've always been kind of a hands-on person. Mm-hmm. So I started to dig into it and really teaching myself how to fix it up, do things, leaned on other people I knew. When you work in restaurants, you end up knowing people of all different sorts of trades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just fun.
And so I leaned on any contacts I had, and we started to fix this house up, and it became worth something. So I thought, well, maybe this would be a good way for me to build capital. And,
make money.
Right. Well, not just make money in general, but make money to buy this bar that I was going to own.
Right.
And so I decided, well, if I'm going to do that, I should control the margins and go get a real estate license. Right, so I remember the first day back then it was, you go on site, there was no online learning.
Yeah.
And I walked in that day and I remember I was just like, oh, this is where I was supposed to be. Like, I knew it right away.
Really?
Absolutely. I knew right away that this is what I wanted to do.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the instructor was every bit as stereotypical as you could imagine as a salesperson. I thought, that's who I want to be.
Oh, that's funny. So then did you ever open the bar or restaurant?
Nah, never did. Never look back on it.
Oh, really? You're like, nope, moving on.
Oh my God, I would never do that. I don't recommend it.
Do you still have that property and use it as an investment property?
No. I actually sold that property after being in the business for about maybe a year and a half, and I used the equity for that to pay for my wedding.
Okay.
To my wife. I still have that wife.
That's good.
Sorry, honey.
Yeah. So one of the things that we know and love about you is that you teach many classes and mainly on negotiating, right?
That's true. The classes are billed as negotiating, and I would say that the classes mix negotiation with personal betterment, mindset, things like that as well. I sneak those in as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because to be a good negotiator, you have to be in a good place yourself. It's almost impossible to negotiate anything to the best outcome that you can if you're not in a good place.
So what are some things through the years of you being in the industry that you picked up in order to share with our listeners to properly negotiate besides being in a good mind frame?
I think that the number one thing I would say is that really asking questions. Stop talking. Let other folks talk. Ask very specific questions, and then sometimes dig back into that same question. Ask it in a different way. Let the other side talk. Usually, the other side, whoever that other side may be, they're going to tell you most everything you need to know as to where they want to be. Mm-hmm. And from that, you can start to understand where their bottom lines might be or are, and so you can craft offers and other things around that. Mm-hmm. I would say that's probably the number one thing, aside from being in a nice, calm place where you're not going to totally melt down in a negotiation.
Mm-hmm. And as far as starting with yourself, right? Because I believe it all starts mentally. If you don't have the confidence, you're never going to be able to direct the conversation and all that. Was there any kind of coaching you took or books you read that kind of led you to become that person, or were you just born that way?
No, I wasn't born that way. Not at all. In fact, I was born in the exact opposite end of the spectrum. I'm a very high anxiety person, and I would say that
Welcome to the club.
yeah, right. Well, if you suffer
Oh, yes.
from that, then I would imagine you probably know that people have all different ways of acting out when they're in a high anxiety state. You know, I mean, I don't know where you both fall, but some people fall to the curl up in a corner, pull the covers over your head, don't want to go to work. I unfortunately fall into the fight category, and I don't mean physically fight.
No, like the anger.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So I have to control that. I come from angry people. If my mom and dad watch this, they'll probably say, "Yeah, you're right."
Oh my gosh.
But what I mean by that is that it's very easy for me to autopilot into that space. So I have to mechanically, almost on a daily basis, call myself. So to your question about classes or books, there's too many to mention. I would say one of the biggest things that was a huge turning point in my life is when I found meditation. And that's a long story we probably don't have
Yeah, it could be a
time
whole
for.
nother podcast.
Yeah,
But
right.
oh my gosh,
But
I'm
the-
sure a lot of people are nodding along with that.
Totally.
Yeah.
And having gone through a formal class, that's what I had to do myself to figure it out. It was a 9-week course, and it's something that I've adopted. Keep hitting that table.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's something that I've adopted into my life, and I can't say that I'm batting 1,000 on that. I fail miserably often, and I do meditate almost every single day.
Do you, just curious, do you do it in the morning or night or both sometimes?
Both.
Yes.
Sometimes during the day, night, morning, while I'm directing traffic. No, I really start my day out. The first thing that I do is meditate before I do anything else, which is not something I've always done.
Yeah.
It just seemed weird, like I'm going to wake up and then fall back asleep. So I do set it up that I do it's not a very long meditation, but it's 10 to 15 minutes, and sit upright so that I'm not prone to falling back to sleep. And go downstairs into the same space, same room,
Yeah.
and meditate for 10 to 15 minutes. I can tell you, for me, it sets everything right for the day.
There's a lot of agents that are friends of mine that do the same thing. And part of it was from reading the Miracle Morning book,
absolutely.
right? And all that stuff. And I think that's why because I read that a long time ago, and I still have my morning routine. It just sets me up right for the day,
That's right.
like you said. And so I do think it's good to take time, even just to reflect, maybe say your affirmations, whatever it is you do, but just set yourself up in that same way.
I agree, 100%. And that's one of the many books that I've read as
Yeah.
well that I thought had a great effect on me, and I've adopted practices from that I incorporate every single day.
Yeah, and there's a specific one for real estate agents.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yep.
So that's
Well,
good.
well, thank you for sharing that. To kind of pivot back to the negotiation piece of things, what would you say, is there a different tactic that you've utilized to negotiate for buyer sides versus seller sides?
It's a good question. There's going to be certain things that fall onto each side of the equation that would be specific to those particular folks. I would say that instead of buyer side versus seller side, almost buyer's market versus seller's market, right? Understanding the position you're in. And it doesn't even have to be as broad as the full market. It can be as very laser focused as what is the situation we're in. Perhaps this is a distressed property, right? And so we know that there's probably some other things going on the other side that could be worth more to the seller than just the money, right? But definitely understanding what market you're in, and then you can understand where leverage exists. So you can find some leverage points.
Do you educate your clients on that to help them understand? Because I think, especially now, I will be interested to get your opinion on this, but like the past 2 years, home values were going up. People were spending more to get the home because they wanted the home and things along those lines. And so now I think as we're, I say on pause or going back to some of normalcy here, is I think I would be curious, but I feel like people want more they're like, oh, no, because this is what the market was like. So do you educate your clients beforehand or send them resources or things along those lines to set the expectations so you're not also failing them or not meeting their expectations either?
Sure. So we on my team, we do formal buyer consultations and formal listing appointments. So during each of those meetings, we will, in every market, we will counsel and share information throughout that meeting that would speak to that. So, for example, if we want to get specific on a buyer side, we may look at what are the average prices in the neighborhoods you're looking at right now. What is the average time on market? Let's look at the actives. Let's look at the pendings to get an idea of how fast things are moving. And we can speak to what are the typical terms that people would be open to in this market. Flip side, on the seller side, we can certainly look backwards. And that's the funny thing about pricing, we're always looking backwards. If we just go from a strict appraisal, the appraiser is looking at what has sold over the last 30, 60, 90 days, 180 days. As realtors, we have to look at what's happening right now on the street and what do we speculate is going to happen in the next 30, 60, 90. So we have those conversations around that to show that while there were some prices that were achieved, like in this market right now, while there were some prices achieved 6 months ago, the interest rate was 2 points below where we're at right now. The inventory was X. Now let's look at right now today. The interest rate is 2 points higher, the inventory is Y. And then we put it back to them. If you were a buyer and put your buyer hat on, how would you look at this market? Would you pay those prices for those houses? And just ask them, because that's going to help them understand. So we definitely have conversations around things like that. That wouldn't be the only thing, but yeah, we definitely counsel them in that direction.
What would you say is when you're speaking to someone who maybe you're mentoring or new, like an agent who's newer into the business or maybe even got into it, like newer when I mean like the last 2 years, is what is like a pitfall or a mistake or something to make when it comes to negotiating that you can say, do not do this or avoid, or,
Sure.
practice these items.
Right. I would say that demonizing the other side, whether that be the seller buyer or the agent or anybody in that camp representing them, you're not going to do yourselves any good. If the goal is to buy that house, the worst thing you can possibly do is suggest that the seller or their representation is doing something underhanded, wrong, stupid, whatever, and vent to your clients that way, because then they're going to feel very negative about the whole experience. In fact, they may turn on you and feel negative about you if you speak that way. On the other side of that too, though, you're probably gonna, if you plan to be in the business for a while, you'll probably come across that agent again. Why do that? And it's very easy to fall victim to emotional outbursts, especially in times where things are very tense. We carry a lot of the emotions of our clients often, and it is our job as professionals to tamper that and not be the voice of chaos, but instead the voice of reason.
Yeah, and also like to go back to the title piece of things is that, it's changed over the years, but the last piece of the experience is the end of the closing, right? So you want it to be, if there is like bad blood there and when everyone used to be in the room, right? Then that makes,
those days.
It doesn't make the like experience fun or happy or exciting. And then that's also your next referral, right? So you want it to leave like as the most happy.
That's right.
Professional experience.
Imagine asking your client in that negative experience to give you a review that day. It's just everything feels wrong. I remember those days too where we were all at the same table, and I remember some, and I'm sure you've been a part of them, where you had to separate buyer and seller in separate rooms because they were about to tear each other's heads off, right? And we couldn't close in the same room, otherwise there'd probably be a knife drawn.
Yep.
Yeah. I feel like things have really changed, and I don't know if it's just because coming out of COVID or what, but a lot of agents are just loving getting together, mingling with everybody, and everyone's doing all these different classes where like all brokerage welcome, everybody's welcome, and it's been great. I feel like the more you get to know everybody else, and you do come across their names, it's like then you have that good feeling, you've met them before, you see their name and you're like, oh, I know this person. And it just seems a lot more friendly all around. And maybe COVID taught us something.
Yeah, that's right. Well,
because we couldn't see each other for so long.
Oh, I know. And most folks in real estate are just naturally people. Right. And so sitting at home, Zooming all the time, signing contracts from afar, that's good for only so long. And then we all start crawling out of our skins.
Yes.
So, we have to get back in front of one another. Back to the title piece, though, and back to those pitfalls and some of those suggestions. The other thing I would say to all agents right now, be they new or in the business for a while, bulletproof your transactions. And from the start, so for example, a little plug for a title.
Yeah. Give it away.
When we have a new listing, talk to your favorite title people and have them pull title right away. Find out, was there a forbearance on this thing?
Right.
Is there going to be something that's going to be a problem down the road that we didn't even know about? Minimize those opportunities for stress. Minimize those opportunities for problems down the road. counsel your clients as to what's expected. Many sellers heard that nobody was doing an inspection over the last year.
Right.
I know.
That is done. That's gone. That's in the past, and we're back to normalcy.
Yeah.
Inspections are part of a transaction. Let your clients know that right out of the gate. Let them know it's very normal for an inspector to find things in your house. In fact, it would be extremely abnormal for them not to, even in a new construction home. Have those conversations with your clients to bring some of those, identify where those pitfalls exist in a transaction and shine some light on them right away. Find out ways to mitigate that right away so that you're already from day one minimizing future problems that could arise and have the agents battling, the buyer and seller battling, and then everything falling apart. And then we've all worked for free.
Very well said. Mic drop.
I'll go now.
Yeah.
So I think another important thing that's always on people's minds right now is because looking into the future, right? Like what kind of things do you see happening in the market because of what's going on right now today? A lot of people are saying marry the house, date the rate, all that stuff. Like,
Right.
do you see a big refi boom again? Do you see people having, what do you kind of see in your vision?
I think for me, the best way to answer that question is to say I see a number of different scenarios, right? Not just one. I have no idea which scenario will rise to the top. I don't
think anyone does.
No, but a lot of
We love to
people are
put people on the
saying
spot,
things,
though.
right? No, and it's good to put people on the spot. We should be put on the spot
Yeah.
because we should get comfortable answering the question with an answer that we're not sure. I've heard a lot of folks saying that, just lock in now, you're going to be able to refinance in 12 to 18 months. We don't know that. I've heard a
Right.
lot of people say that, interest rates would never get as bad as they were in the early 80s. We don't know that, right? We don't know
We
where
don't
it's
know
going to
that.
go, right? This is uncharted territory. So what I would say is that when we're looking at the future, there's no doubt that the higher interest rates have increased the cost. That is taking some people out of the market and making other people second guess their buying decision. That will probably have a negative effect on pricing, okay? But to put that into perspective, it depends on where we're measuring from and what we're measuring to. Are we looking at the absolute top dollar ever achieved for a house? Yeah, that we're probably not going to be able to get that for a few years. Are we looking at what the average home was and what it sold for over the past 2 to 3 years? We might still be in that territory for a while. There could potentially be just stagnant pricing. It may not rise at all. In fact, the other thing though is there's a scenario where we could see pricing continuing to go up 2, 3, 4, 5 points a year, even in a high interest rate environment. There's no guarantee that we're going to see pricing come down. There's no guarantee that we're going to see interest rates go down. So I would say everybody, or like I've always said, if this is your time to buy, if this is your time to sell, let's talk about it and put a plan together, right? If you're looking to try to time the market, please let me know how that works. Please let me know what you see,
Yeah.
the top and the bottom, because the only way we know it is when we're looking in the rearview mirror. Nobody can call the top and the bottom. But if you're telling me, look, I live in a 2-bedroom home, I have 4 children, they all share a 4 stacked high bunk bed.
Yeah.
And, we'll just stick it out for the next 7 years. Well, okay, that's great if you can make that work, but let's be realistic. Is that going to work for you? The other thing I would say, too, is that we did see some wild bidding that went on over the last year.
Right.
People were very comfortable spending $50, $60,
Right.
even $100,000 over
Over
ask.
asking, yeah.
And you're telling me you're uncomfortable with a couple of points higher than interest rate?
Right.
That doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think that we're probably going to see the people that need to buy are going to buy. The people that need to sell are going to sell. Prices may go up, prices may go down. I doubt we'll see a big giant drop like we did in 2009, 10, 11. And I was doing business back then. It's just a different environment altogether. I'd be shocked and floored if we saw massive appreciation over the next 5 years. And me personally, don't believe that interest rates will come down significantly in the next 2 years. I personally don't believe that, and it could still happen.
I think though through all this though, the most important thing though is to be working with a real estate agent that is your guide and is like your honest, person that you can go to direct you. So as long as you stay in touch with these people, they're going to stick with you.
That's right.
And it's like that's all you can do is just guide them and be there for them.
Well, in that space of guidance too, and thank you for saying that, I think that that's really important to remind folks of. When you meet with a realtor and you say, I have this need, I have this desire to move, maybe today isn't the day for you. Maybe the interest rates and the average price of what you need is a little bit too high or a little bit too uncomfortable. That's fine. Let's put together a plan.
Right.
What do we need to do to get in the right position? Is that going to take 6 months, 12 months, 24 months? whatever it's going to take, it's never too early to meet with us.
Right.
It's never too early to meet with a lender. We talk about this every single day. Let's put a plan together versus, hey, I should have moved 6 months ago and now I'm tearing my hair out and I need to move right now and I can't afford anything. That's a terrible position to be in, and it's hard to get that plan together. So don't be shy in contacting the realtor of choice, the Graham Smith team, to help you have that conversation.
Well, and that's where I'm looking forward to in this market and everything is that's what it is. That's what it is supposed to be, and what it was supposed to be the past 2 years.
That's right.
And it is the relationship over the transaction, and it is you're the educator to help these folks, and not just okay. Well, we're going to just do this and get in and do no inspection and all of this stuff, and then you're going to go in this house, and then good luck, and I'm going on to the next one, right? I mean that is so.
Well, and in your positions and my position and everybody that's involved in real estate transactions, we're not leading the actions and activities per se. Like we didn't create the situation to say let's all make 50 offers on a house.
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
But we're working in the environment that is before us, and that was it. So we had to, right? It was how fast can we get there? How great can we make the offer? Now we've got some breathing room. That's a huge positive to most buyers, right? Yes, there's a higher interest rate. And I would say this too, thinking about that and thinking about your question about the future, let's run this scenario. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, interest rates drop back down to 4.75 or 4.5. What the heck do you think is going to happen? Aside from refi boom, what do you think is going to happen with that giant buyer pool sitting on the sideline?
Yeah.
They're going to come roaring back in, competing for homes, and it's going to go right back to that situation.
Right.
So if you're a buyer that's uncomfortable with that, this is a great environment right now.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And it is true. Like if somebody really wants to buy or sell and has a reason to, and they can make it work, and it works for them, why not?
That's right.
There's always a time.
Well, and I'm sure you're seeing it too when you're closing some of these transactions. Lenders are coming up with other programs that might sound exotic, but they've only not been used because we didn't need to. The interest rate was so low. But buying discount points is something that was always done.
Always around.
Yeah. And having that opportunity where maybe you can make an offer where a seller would buy down your interest rate for you, but whether it's temporary or permanent, that's a great option. And something that, if you're working with a quality team, they're going to be able to show you how that works, and you can decide if it works for you.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's good to have like good lenders too that you can refer your clients to.
Absolutely.
That have different programs. So
what would you tell, I don't want to say old Graham, but like right when you started in the industry, like if you could do it all over again or something, what would be something you would try to do differently within your career?
Advice to your younger self.
I would have said,
thank you. I can never word that.
Shave that stupid goatee and get a better haircut than great clips.
Oh my gosh, your hair is fantastic. Everyone talks about your hair.
That's kind of you to say that, and I should have brought the picture of when I first got into real estate. It's remarkable. When I show people, they're just like, you got to be kidding me. Like, I literally, in some of those classes of negotiations with folks who are brand new, I pull it out.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, look at this guy. If this guy can sell real estate, anybody can sell.
You should email that to us, because then when we air this, we'll put it in the comments.
I'm serious.
Because people are going to want to see it now.
I sold 24 houses my first year in real estate. 23 buyers and one listing, right? And everybody was basically somebody I knew from college, or a bartender, or a server, or a cook. It was just the folks I knew. I was the king of like the $140,000 single family home. and somehow I put all that together and made it work. But if that guy could do it, anybody can.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll send you that picture. It's pretty ridiculous. You won't even believe it's me.
I love that.
No, what I would really tell myself is, don't let fear dictate your decisions. Don't let fear dictate your life. I spent a lot of time in fear. And I will say there is a silver lining to fear. Depending on how you're built, fear may be your driver to continue to get out of bed every day, go to work, right? So I still have that. But I spent a lot of time in my own head, fearful of what was going to happen. And honestly, most of the things that I stressed out about never came to fruition. Just keep going forward, keep going to work. The other thing I would tell myself about this business specifically is the activities that are going to have the best result for you are pretty boring. Just do them every day, over and over. Make sure that you're lead generating every day. Have that plan together. It's not sexy. It's not HGTV ready, But those are the activities that are going to bring you the most clients. Because we can be the best negotiators in the world, but if we don't have any clients, I mean, what's the point?
Yeah, if you're not lead generating.
That's right.
Yeah, that's true. You always need to keep on preparing for the next moment,
Yeah.
right?
I remember that too in my first year, to be back to, that's why I wanted to bring it up. The first year I sold 24 houses. I think the next year I sold 12 or 10.
Okay.
You know, because I was like, my God, I got all this business. And then I didn't stay on any sort
On
of
the
a lead
tasks,
generating task to continue to bring new clients in, right?
It's the natural sales game, right?
Yeah.
Like you go up and then
Yeah,
you go,
right.
if you,
It's all
while you're going up, if you're not
It
doing
is.
the lead generating, then you go down.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks have to go through it. I had to go through it. I mean, I probably heard somebody say this to me at that time. Whatever. I had to go through it to learn it. And when you're consistently doing those things over and over, you don't have those big giant ebbs and flows. It's more consistent income throughout the year.
Right.
Where can people find you?
You mean online?
Yes.
You can go to thegrahamsmithteam.com. You can email me at grahamsmith@kw.com. My name is spelled Graham. It's not GRAM. I'm not a unit of measurement.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that happens all the time. GRAHAMSMITH@kw.com.
Awesome.
Okay, great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Graham.
Yeah.